All right, everyone. It looks like most everybody's connected, and I've muted everyone upon arrival except Kathy Bunting-Howarth and Emily Sheridan. You are not muted automatically, just if you want to hop in and add to the conversation. But if you do want to mute yourself, that is also okay. So we're going to get started. My name is Heather Weitzner, and I'm the Great Lakes Coastal Processes and Hazards Specialist in New York Sea Grant. I'm being joined today with Kathy Bunting-Howarth with New York Sea Grant and Emily Sheridan with DEC. They'll help me answer questions and kind of move us along. Today our goal is to just ensure that you understand the RFP and what the goals of the program are, the application process, and we'd like to answer any questions that you might have. If you ask questions that we can't answer right away, feel free to email me, or I'll email you if I can take your name down. The webinar is being recorded, and we'll attempt to post on our website. At this time, of course, you are all muted, but if you do have questions, you can chat me or everyone through the chat box, and we'll answer questions at the end. So let's get started. So first, I'd like to review the timeline. The RFP was announced on June 20th, and of course, today we have our first application guidance webinar, and June 25th at noon is our second. The proposal deadline is September 23rd at 4:30 p.m. We will begin awarding people the week of October 31st, and the project goes from March 1st, 2017 to August 31st, 2018. And of course, the project should be completed by that August date. And final reports are due by November 30th, 2018. The Small Grants Program is made possible by the New York State Environmental Protection Fund and Article 14 of the Environmental Conservation Law, which is the Ocean and Great Lakes Ecosystem Conservation Act. So through guidance, the guidance from planning initiatives by New York State agencies and New York Sea Grant, including some regional workshop meetings held by DEC and the action agenda. The Small Grants Program is intended to support stakeholder-driven efforts, and we're hoping to restore and revitalize the state's Great Lakes region and demonstrate successful application of ecosystem-based management. And this is an integrated approach to resource management that considers the entire ecosystem, including us, the humans, and the elements that are integral to ecosystem functions. So from the action agenda, I'd like to, so this is the New York State's Great Lakes Basin Action Agenda, and Emily Sheridan is going to walk through the principles of ecosystem-based management. This was something that was requested from last year. There was a little bit of confusion about what ecosystem-based management is, when it applies, when you're submitting your application, which ones do you check. So I'm going to turn it over to Emily, and she's going to go over the principles and in more detail, so when you're applying, you can feel more sure that you're hitting these points. So Emily, it's off to you.
Thank you, Heather. So ecosystem-based management really came out of the Ocean and Great Lakes Ecosystem Conservation Act that was passed in 2006, and it aligned with the Great Lakes Water Quality Agreement in our agreement with Canada to apply an ecosystem-based approach to management of the Great Lakes Basin. And through our work groups and a number of research and reports that have been done and a demonstration project in both Sandy Creek and Long Island, we have developed a number of criteria that can be applied to, projects or the planning of a project or stakeholder-driven efforts that that you can go through to determine if you're applying this ecosystem-based management approach. The first principle is the place-based focus, and that is, it's in the Great Lakes, and perhaps, it's in another sub-watershed of the Great Lakes, and what the significance of that place might be to the Great Lakes itself. The second principle, the protection of the ecosystem structure, function, and key processes is, if the project considers the health and integrity of the entire ecosystem, say it's a demonstration project, if it's implemented, how can that, kind of be expanded into the Great Lakes Basin and support, the health of the ecosystem as a whole. The third, the interconnectedness within and among systems. Does it consider how, if it's a water quality project, maybe how will it benefit certain species, or, if it's a resiliency project, how might it benefit the economy of the region? So kind of just considering how it kind of affects everything within the system. The integration of ecological, social, economic, and institutional perspectives, kind of assuming that humans are part of the ecosystems and that there's a social ecological system within that ecosystem, and how it will influence the environment, community, economy, and current management institutions. Sustainable human use of the ecosystem. Is the project going to sustain the goods and services that healthy ecosystems produce? Stakeholder involvement. Does the project include the participation and or consider the input of stakeholders and or target the population served throughout the planning and implementation process? Especially if it's a sort of community-driven process that you've identified an issue with a community, and this approach can be used to address that issue. Collaboration. Does the project include or support coordination and or collaboration among various stakeholders, management entities, and project beneficiaries? The scientific foundation for decision-making. Does the project use and or produce scientific information to inform decision-making and management actions? And adaptive management. Does the project use or generate information that can be used to modify management decisions as the project unfolds, improve project design and outcomes, and better inform similar efforts in the future? This can also include the sort of monitoring of a project and determining lessons learned from that project to apply to future projects as well. So does anyone have any questions about those principles?
We can accept questions later since I have people muted. If people do have questions, they can send them through the chat and we can address them later.
Okay. Thank you, Heather.
Thanks, Emily. So moving on, this call for proposals is designed to kind of promote local projects that lead to larger scale activities as described in the action agenda. We're anticipating that the program will be available on an annual basis depending on funding, and each year new priorities will be identified. So if we go back to the RFP, this year we've identified goal 5 and 7 as the priorities, and goal 5 is to conserve and restore native fish and wildlife biodiversity and habitats to achieve and sustain resilient ecosystems and vibrant economies. Goal 7 is to enhance community resiliency and ecosystem integrity through restoration, protection, and improved resource management. So I just want to note, in the action agenda, you can find goal 5 starts on page 28 of the actual document, not the page 35 from the PDF. So it walks through what the goal is, and then if you, while you're writing your proposal, you want to check out the priority actions, you can kind of link what you're planning on doing with these strategies and actions and the outcomes. So this goes to page 30 for goal 5, and then goal 7 starts on page 33 of the actual document, and the priority actions go from 34 to 35 to 36. So these are important pages to look at when you're writing your proposal, so you can kind of hit these actions that are within the goals. So proposals may not exceed $25,000, and we intend to fund 8 to 10 proposals at a total of $200,000. Eligible projects may include project planning, design, and or implementation, information management tool development, demonstration projects, and targeted outreach and education initiatives. And these should support the management actions and address the following areas as they relate to goals 5 and 7. So aquatic connectivity, vulnerable landscape or habitat conservation and or enhancement, natural infrastructure and or nature-based shoreline protection, riparian restoration, green infrastructure, and stormwater management. So these are some ideas to get you started. Like I said before, full proposals must be submitted by 4:30 Eastern Standard Time on September 23rd, and they must be submitted through our website, which is this link. And I just want to note that the website won't accept proposals past the 4:30 timeline, so please get your proposals in before then. And we'll be available for questions. Well, if you have any questions or problems submitting or anything with your proposal, you can contact me and I'll help resolve those issues. So now I'll show you this website. So if you just click on this link, it'll take you to the website here, which has some funding opportunities from Sea Grant. And if you click this link, it'll take you to this page. So this is a very important page. It has all of your related links. So these are all documents that will help you along, or you should submit with your proposal. So the first one is the full call details, which is the RFP. The second one is this cover sheet, which is here. So it just has the project title, the project lead, and the project team if you have a few individuals that are really key in your project. So this is important to submit. The next one is the application components checklist, which you do not have to submit, but because there are so many components of this, this might be helpful for you to kind of walk through and make sure you have everything you might need. The next thing on the website is the project goal and focus checklist. So we do want you to submit this. This is something that kind of gives us a snapshot of what your project is, which goal it's applying, where it focuses within that goal, and then which ecosystem-based management principle your project applies. And I just want to note within your proposal, you should discuss how the project applies to EBM principles, not just check the principles, but kind of explain in more detail within your proposal. So then from there we have the 90-4 budget form, which should be submitted. And if you do have questions on this, Jean Ann Johnson can answer your questions, but if you need her information, you can contact me and I can help you connect you with her. And then finally, the 90-2 project summary sheet. So this is kind of a quick summary of your project, when it's starting, the project lead, your objectives, your methods, and then your rationale. So this should be submitted with your project. So then from there, that's everything that's in this left, I'm lagging. On this left-hand side, if you scroll down, be sure to scroll down. We had a few people last year who didn't scroll down and they didn't know how to apply. So if you click on this Apply Now button, it brings you to this page, which kind of has the countdown for when the website ends or closes out for proposals. So if you have any trouble applying, you can contact Lane Smith. His phone number is at the bottom, or Paul Ficazio, or if you need additional assistance, you can contact me. So now going back to the RFP, we're going to walk through the proposal format. Like I said before, the cover sheet that I showed you has to be submitted. The goal and focus checklist should be submitted. The project description should be no longer than 5 pages. This does not include several components, so the cover sheet, the checklist, and some other things that I'll walk through. Your project description should identify the action agenda goal that your project addresses and specific actions, like in the tables I showed you in the action agenda earlier. We'd like you to give us a project summary, the goals and methods, your objectives, outputs and deliverables, the integration of EBM principles, your personnel, and any collaborations you might have for your project, and the project location. So I'm just going to bring this map up really quick. So to get the money, you have to be within this Great Lakes Basin. So if you want to just kind of double check that you're within the basin, you can just pull up this map, which is in the RFP, and double check your location. So as far as personnel and partners go, we ask that you include a brief biographical sketch of the top 3 personnel. If you don't have the 3 personnel, you don't have to force the 3, so just your top personnel. These do not count towards the 5-page description. And letters of support. We will not be considering general project support letters. We will be looking for, if your project includes activities on public or private lands, we will be looking for project letters of support from municipal governments and or private property owners, allowing you to do the project on those lands and kind of giving you the support that you would need. So please don't worry about sending general letters of support because we won't be considering them. Your timeline, we would like to see that you would give us the timeline for the start and completion of the project. These do not count towards the 5-page project description. We ask that you limit timelines to 1 page. So then we move on to the budget justification, and we'd like your justifications to reflect key project milestones, deliverables, and schedules to support invoicing. These also do not count towards the 5-page project description, and the budget categories go from labor costs, fringe benefits, permanent equipment, expendable supplies and equipment, travel and transportation, other costs, and indirect costs. And then we go to the cost reasonableness statement, which is a new thing this year. We're asking that the statement should identify how costs were determined and how they are appropriate and competitive, for example, using the market rates or competitive salaries. This also does not count towards your 5-page project description. And I just want to note, budget justifications and cost reasonableness statements are not the same thing. So if you do have any additional questions about this, you can always email me or call me. We then move on to the 90-4 budget form, which I showed you earlier. If you have any trouble with this, contact me or contact Jean-Ann and we can help you through that. And then we have the 90-2 project summary form, which I showed you earlier. So just to quickly go through additional requirements of successful applicants, a certificate of liability insurance, audited statements, permits, documentation of ownership and public interest in property, and municipal endorsement. So these are just things to consider if you were to become a successful applicant, things that would be required. So as far as evaluation of proposals go, first and foremost, you should link it to one or both of the goals. The degree to which a project integrates EBM principles is important for us. The connection between projects' defined outcomes and deliverables and defined goals. The prior experience of the team. Let me go over here. The appropriateness of your budget. Does it seem like you'll be able to complete the project within the budget that you propose? And of course, it should be located within the Great Lakes Basin. The inclusion of an outreach component, so we're looking for opportunities to kind of expand the project with an outreach component. The opportunities for implementation of the action agenda, and the degree to which the project opens up doors for future related projects. So these are some things that you can be looking at as you're writing your proposal as things that we're looking at when we will be rating your proposal. And finally, we have the funding guidelines. A contract between Stony Brook University and the selected recipients must be signed before a purchase order will be issued. We require an application for reimbursement, including receipts, and quarterly progress reports and mid-project and final project reports will be due. So if you have any questions as far as funding or contracting goes, again, Jean-Ann is the person to speak with, and I think Lane Smith is on today, and he can answer any immediate questions that you may have. So with that, I will start accepting questions. If you want to chat them in the box, if you have any general questions, I can answer them now. If I can't answer something, I will get back to you with the answer. Oh, okay. So there's one question from Erica. who says, if a municipality writes a letter of support, would that count as municipal endorsement? So is the, let's go back to letters of support. If the project is on public land and that municipality writes the letter of support kind of granting permission for the project on that land, that would count. But a general letter of support, we would not be looking at. So we have a question here about the contracting process. Last year we hit a few bumps, but we've worked those out. So the contracting process, let's go to the timeline. So the award notification is the week of October 31st, and then project term dates can start March 1st. So it takes a few months to kind of work through all the details of the contract, but that's kind of the time frame that we're looking at. So we have a question, can an organization submit more than one proposal for different projects? I believe so. Anyone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't see why not. There might be issues with funding one organization with different projects, but if anybody else from Sea Grant or DEC has an opinion on that, please feel free to jump in. Oh, let me unmute you. I'm sorry.
Heather?
Yep, sorry, I had you muted, Lane.
Unless it specifically says in the RFP that there's a limit, then yeah, you can have more than one project proposal submitted. Mm-hmm. And Jeannie Ann's here with me too, so. Okay,
thank you. Okay, so someone else asked, can this grant be used for developing a plan for elimination of invasive species, including aquatic, or an inventory of invasive species? So if you look at the action agenda, I'll pull it up. Goal 4 addresses, I think it's Goal 4, more addresses the invasive species. If it fits Goal 5 or 7, like if within these actions of Goal 5 and 7 you see some action that fits an elimination plan for invasive, I don't believe there is, but I would look more closely at these specific actions.
If the project is sort of a riparian restoration project or riparian buffer project, and as part of that restoration, some invasive species management is needed, I believe that would be eligible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, kind of a part of a bigger picture project.
Yeah.
A picture that addresses Goal 5 or 7. There's a question about matching funds. Matching funds are not required. We have a question, are operation and maintenance costs of green infrastructure an eligible activity to be funded? That's a good question. Let me, I haven't, I want to say no, because we're looking for more project planning, design, implementation, demonstration projects, but we can speak privately in more detail about that later, so I can get more details, if that's okay with you. I'll make sure to make a note of that.
Heather, what was the question again?
Oh, sorry. Operation and maintenance costs for green infrastructure, would that be eligible for funding?
I think it would have to be done in terms of the RFP language, but I would suggest you do some research and post an answer online.
Yep. Okay. Am I missing anyone's questions? Okay, one more question. If a project is also seeking funding from other sources, does that prioritize the project at all, or would it hurt at all? We like to see collaboration. As far as asking for funding for the same work. Kathy, I know we had a couple projects that were doing that last year. What would you say for that?
The sponsor likes the fact that these funds can leverage other dollars. So to the extent that you are, able to show multiple sources of funding to support other aspects of your project, that's a positive thing, but you can't apply for funds to do the same work that you're getting funded somewhere else.
Okay. That's what I thought. Okay.
Something I would say, if you had a project that is maybe an access project and you would also like to integrate some green infrastructure or riparian restoration into that access project, and without this funding, those type of efforts wouldn't be implemented. I think that would be something we would want to see supported with this, how it kind of builds on an existing effort.
Thanks, Emily. Okay, I'll give a few more seconds for any more other questions to come in. I don't think I've missed any.
Do you want the submissions in a particular file format, like a single PDFs or Word documents or anything like that?
Yeah, so in here, we would prefer proposal components to be submitted as one document. It says it here. As far as the format type goes, as PDF or Word, as long as it's one document. I mean, some people might not have access to one or the other, or so as long as it's one document, that's helpful for us.
All right, for successful applicants, if it's a PDF, we'll need the original Excel file of the 94 and a Word document of the a budget justification and that cost reasonableness. So
okay.
Just have that in mind.
Okay, that's good to know.
Is that for all applications or just successful ones, Lane?
Successful ones.
Okay. Alrighty, I don't see any other questions coming in. But if you do have questions, I'll put my email up. You can feel free to email me throughout the application process. If you want to call to verify you're on the right track, feel free to do so. The next webinar is on July 25th. It's going to be a similar format, walking through the RFP, answering any questions people have. So you can feel free to join that if you think people might have questions that might help you. But other than that, I want to thank everyone for participating, and I'm looking forward to reading the proposals.
Heather, before we close, can you pull up the Great Lakes Action Agenda website?
I can. So if you go to this website, you can click on here. Is this what you're looking for?
Yes, I would like people to be aware of a few resources on there that might be able to assist in their application process. One of them being the new New York Great Lakes Clearinghouse that was developed in collaboration with Sea Grant. There's a lot of information and resources on there that can help, especially with resiliency planning. In addition, we have the New York Great Lakes Riparian Restoration Opportunity Assessment. This can help you identify some, areas that we have identified as high priority for riparian restoration if you're considering a riparian restoration project. In addition to that, at the bottom of the website, to get some more ideas on this ecosystem-based management process and what we've done in the past, there is a newsletter available that has highlighted some past efforts as well that might be helpful in the application process. Also, we have identified that we are interested in funding projects that have been identified by our sub-basin work groups as priorities to implement. And if you're interested in your sub-basin's work group plan, the work plan that we have developed through these work groups, you can email me or Shannon to request that. And our contact information is on that newsletter that is on the bottom of that page, or you can email greatlakes@dec.my.gov. Thank you, Heather.
Great, thank you. Does anyone have anything else to add from the Sea Grant team?
Thanks, Heather.
Heather.
Thanks. Have a good day.
Good day, everybody.
Bye.